So continuing with the discussion, Indus Valley civilization. What we have seen in the last class, that in 3rd millennium BC, in many parts of the world, there was urban civilization, and oldest was Mesopotamia. Then we have seen the Indus and Egyptian civilization almost parallel, and then we have a Chinese and Greek civilization. So this is the sequence that we can see. And regarding the Indus Valley civilization, we have seen that the first city that came into existence in 1921, it was Harappa, and it was excavated by John Marshall. And that is the reason why we call this civilization as Harappan civilization. 1921, Harappa, John Marshall. John Marshall. Okay. Then 1921 to 1947, almost 80% of the sites that came across, it was in and around on the bank of river Indus, Indus and its tributaries. 80% of the sites in and around Indus and its tributaries. So we will call it Indus Valley civilization. There was no hesitation in calling the thing called Indus Valley civilization. But after 1947 till 2000, there were many new areas that came into existence, having the sites, its location in Rajasthan, in Gujarat, in Punjab. We can see that some of the new areas that came into, it is around from Jammu and Kashmir to Maharashtra to Western UP to Balochistan. If you see in India, this is the core area where the most of the Harappan cities were located. So combining from 1921 to 2080, 80% of the sites it was located, 80% of the sites it was located in and around Saraswati River Valley. Saraswati River Valley. So we had no hesitation in calling that it is called Saraswati Valley civilization. Saraswati Valley civilization. But recently, according to the definition presented by Archaeological Survey of India, the name of any civilization should be based on first site excavated. First site excavated. So the more correct name that we can put here, Harappan civilization. And at the same time, bronze, it had came into existence for the first time. So copper plus tin, that is Bronze Age civilization. Copper plus tin. So this is a new technical achievement presented, and this is first time we can see such a high grade of metallurgical thing. So Bronze Age civilization. So copper plus tin. So it should be better called as a Bronze Age civilization. Bronze Age civilization. Okay. So in standard books you will find it is a Harappan civilization or Bronze Age civilization. Let us look into some of the characteristics of the civilization. It was urban civilization. Urban civilization. And the pattern of urbanization was very much uniform, that each city was divided in two parts. The one is called Citadel and other was called Lower Town. Citadel and Lower Town. Citadel, it was fortified, surrounded by bricks or stones, highly fortified region, surrounded by bricks or stones. Bricks or stone. Then this is the area where we have residents of the elite class or the ruling class. There were many administrative buildings, and at the same time we have religious structure also. Religious structure also. However, the lower town, it was for the common people. It was for the common people. But we have seen establishment of the industrial complex, market complex as well. Market complex as well. So this is how we can see the citadel and the lower town. Citadel and lower town. We have some of the cities like Mohenjo-daro, Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, Lothal, Kalibangan, Dholavira, Dholavira. These are some of the cities very prominently having very strong background of material culture. So Mohenjo-daro, in terms of size, it was largest site of Indus Valley civilization, largest site of Indus Valley civilization. And largest site of Indus Valley civilization, that is reason why it was considered as capital of Indus Valley civilization. Capital of Indus Valley civilization. After excavation, we have found many evidences like bronze dancing girl, and then a statue of a priest. So the priest was the ruler. So this is a something like that, the very influential character in the ruling establishment. That is, bronze dancing girl is a symbol of artistic creation of the Harappans. A dancing girl made up of bronze and the statue of a priest. These two are very important finding of the Harappan civilization. Then at the same time, from Mohenjo-daro, we have found seals that was belongs to Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia. The sills that belongs to Mesopotamia. So many of the Harappan sills found in Mesopotamia and many Mesopotamian sills found from Harappa, and that shows that there was an exact degree of trading connectivity between these two cities. And Mohenjo-daro, being a capital of the Harappan civilization, definitely had a very strong connection with Mesopotamians. Sills, it was a very important part of their life. Sills was used for presentation of religious icon. Sometimes it is said that it is a administrative structure, ruling decree, order. Ruling decree or order. So sills were the best manifestation of Harappan art. This is best manifestation of Harappan art. So Mohenjo-daro, we have found sills that is called Pasupati sill. And Saptamatrika sill. Saptamatrika sill. It was a symbol of religious icon. It was symbol of religious icon. Saptamatrika sill or Pasupati sill, it was the best symbol of religious icons. So Pasupati sill, it is exhibition of the worship of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, the earliest deity worshipped on earth. So manifestation of that worship of Lord Shiva. Accordingly, Harappa, second largest city you can see. And from Harappa we have found Cemetery H, Cemetery R37, Cemetery H and Cemetery R37. The Cemetery H or the Cemetery R37, where the dead body was buried. Dead body was buried in the north-south direction, head pointing to north. So north-south direction. North-south direction. Dead body was buried in the north-south direction. Cemetery H and Cemetery R37. Cemetery R37. So Harappa was the second largest city, and after excavation here we have seen a material culture in the form of bronze bull. This is a big icon found from Harappan civilization, Harappan cities. Bronze bull. Then we have Lothal. Lothal. Lothal was a coastal city. Coastal city situated in Gujarat. Situated in Gujarat. It was a coastal city. Lothal was mainly constructed for trading purpose. Trading purpose. Mainly it was constructed for trading purpose. Lothal. It was constructed for trading purpose. Okay. So from Lothal, we have found the Persian Gulf Seal. That is also exhibition of the thing that there was a good degree of connectivity between India and the other Central Asian civilizations. Persian Gulf Seal found from Lothal. In order to explore the trading potential, artificial dockyard was also constructed. These are the facts. This is very important for prelims examination. Artificial dockyard was also constructed in Lothal. If you see the size of the artificial dockyard, it is largest artificial thing that had developed in Lothal, where the ship was hanged and then loading, unloading, and then goods was transported to Mesopotamia. So artificial dockyard. Then in the graveyards of Lothal, male was buried with female. In single grave, we have the skeleton of male and female both. And this skeleton you can see is an example of double burial. Double burial. This is example of double burial. Male and female both were buried, and this is example of double burial. Artificial dockyard. Along with the concept of double burial, this is something like that again, the rebirth, which was very much there in the Harappan civilization. And from Lothal, we have also found the evidence of rice. Most of the Harappan cities were located in the wheat cultivation belt. Most of them. It was located in the wheat cultivation belt. Some of them, particularly in Gujarat, there was a rice cultivation. So wheat cultivation belt, and somewhere we have the rice cultivation also. So rice cultivation we can see from Lothal, Rangpur, both are in Gujarat. Here we have the evidence of rice. Otherwise, in all the Harappan cities, areas was focused with the wheat cultivation belt. Kalibangan. This is located in Rajasthan on the bank of river Ghaggar. On the bank of river Ghaggar. Located in Rajasthan on the bank of river Ghaggar. So Kalibangan, black bangles. Here the women normally wear the bangles made up of clay, It was burned to black, so Kalibangan. Black Bengals, Rajasthan. Gaggar. In Kalibangan, we have the three phases of culture. Three phases of culture. Pre-Harappan, Harappan, and post-Harappan. So, in pre-Harappan phase, there was plowing of field. There was evidence, we have found evidence that field was plowed with the help of plowshare. But in Harappan phase, we don't have the field plowed, only we dig the soil to put the seed, and here again the plowing of the field had started. So this three phase of cultural characteristics we can see, and this is called Jhangar culture. The meaning of the word Jhangar culture, where we have the three phases of culture: pre-Harappan, Harappan and post-Harappan. Pre-Harappan, Harappan and post-Harappan. Three phase of culture. This is called Jhangar culture. Amri also, we have three phase of culture. This is also a very fantastic example of Jhangar culture. Jhangar culture, where we have the three phases of the culture, that is pre-Harappan, Harappan and post-Harappan. ठीक है, plowing of the field had started. Plowing of the field had started. This is the oldest evidence of the plowing of the field. Oldest evidence of plowing of field. Oldest evidence of plowing of field. Example came from Kalibangan. We have graves in Kalibangan where there was evidence of surgery. Evidence of surgery we can see in Kalibangan. Dholabira. Dholabira. Dholabira, located in Gujarat, and we have three division of the cities. This is Citadel, this is Middle Town, and this is Lower Town. Citadel, we have Middle Town, and this is Lower Town. So there is an intermediate city in between two cities. So three phase of the city. This is largest site in India. Suppose if there is a question, which of the following India sites should be considered as the largest site, then the obvious answer is Mohenjo-daro. But if it includes the which is the largest site in India, then it should be Dholabira. Dholabira. So Dholabira is a very important site and the largest site of Indus Valley civilization. Largest site of Indus Valley civilization. Recently in Haryana, we have in the mode of excavation, and it is Rakhi Garhi. Rakhi Garhi. Rakhi Garhi. Very, very extensive site is still under excavation. Lots of material culture had been found. If it is officially considered, then Rakhi would become the largest among all the sites, including Mohenjo-daro. So we are putting this fact on hold regarding the largest site of Indus Valley civilization, which is called Rakhi. So these are the some of the important characteristics. If you look at the art and craft, there are two types of art normally they practice, metal art and stone art. Metal art and stone art. Metal art we have copper and bronze was mostly used. But peoples of Indus Valley were the first to use silver. As a metal. Use silver as a metal for the first time. Silver as a metal first time used by peoples of Indus Valley civilization. Metal. Okay. They also used gold to make the ornaments. And along with that, some tools was also manufactured by the use of bronze. Stone, we have steatite. It is a soft stone. And there are three types of sills you can see here, made up of steatite, rectangular, square and circular. Three types of sills. And these sills you can see, in rectangular sills only script are there. In square sills we have the script and picture, and in circular we have only script. So the best classification of the sills we can do here. And what is the possible use of sills? It was used as a religious icon. Use of religious icon. Religious iconography. Religious iconography. This is the most possible use of the sills you can see. All the expression, or it was used for trading purpose as well. trading purpose as well. If you see agriculture, they know about the crop rotation. Crop rotation means they use Rabi crop, Kharif, and Zaid. All types of the crops they used to grow. Crop rotation. But mostly the Rabi wheat cultivation belt, stable cropping. Cotton was first grown by peoples of Indus Valley civilization. Indus Valley civilization. Cotton. It was known as Sindhan. Sindhan. So cotton was first grown by peoples of Indus Valley civilization and it was known as Sindhan. Sindhan. Okay. And cotton was exported to Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia. We have found the bunch of cotton from Mesopotamian cities having the mark of the seals from the Indus Valley civilization. Religion. Religion. They were nature worshipper. They worship nature. Worship nature. Nature worshipper. Direct form of nature. They worship people, neem, snake, water, earth. So they worship direct form of nature. However, the temples are absent in Mesopotamian civilization. In Indus Valley civilization, temples are there in Mesopotamia, but it was very much absent in Indus Valley civilization. Big temples are not found, but it was found in Mesopotamia. Temples are the part of their life in Mesopotamia. But here we don't see temple. That means the religion was very private affair and it was not demonstrated in public. The absence of temple means the religion was absolutely private and it was not demonstrated in public. This is the manifestation of not finding the temples in Indus cities. Water cult, we can see a large reservoir of water known as Great Bath found from Mohenjo-daro. Found from Mohenjo-daro. Great Bath means on a particular day they all had taken the common bathing system. This is a ritualistic. Particularly, what actually historians trying to carve it, the finding of the large reservoir, that common bathing system on a particular date. This is Great Bath. Water cult. We have a great granary also. They worship grain as a outcome of the nature. Both are found from Mohenjo-daro. Pashupati Sil was worship of Proto Shiva, Lord Shiva. It is said that the oldest deity that was worshipped, and it is related to the worship of nature as well. It is worship of nature. Proto Shiva, this is worship of nature. Pashupati Sil, the oldest deity worshipped, this is related to the worship of nature. If you look into the burial practices, of Harappan civilization, burial practices, complete inhumation. Complete inhumation means the dead body was buried completely, putting the north-south direction, and or burning the dead body. Burning the dead body. Complete inhumation. Right? Dead body was completely buried or completely burning. Putting the head towards north and then putting the head towards north and body towards south, leg towards south. Second, this is commonly practiced even now these days. Second point, partial inhumation. Partial inhumation, that is leaving the dead body open for some days and then allowing the beast to eat it. Partial inhumation, leaving the dead body open for some days and allowing the beast to eat it, and after some days we go for the treatment either by burning or burying. Okay. And third point is called pot burial. Pot burial. Pot burial means after collection of the ashes, after burning, that is blown in water or you put in the earth. So these three types of the burning practices we can see in the Indus Valley civilization that was followed. And somehow with changed perspective, this continuity of the tradition is still being followed. Right? So this is what the burning of the dead body. Regarding the facts of decline of civilization, Wheeler, according to Wheeler, this civilization was declined mainly because of the Aryan invasion. Aryan invasion. But this theory was absolutely negated. absolutely negated. Second theory, ecological imbalances. Ecological imbalances. That is, civilization had declined because of change in ecological system. Change in ecological system, we can see that either the river had changed its course, or river had dried up, or there was decline in fertility of the soil, decline in rainfall. All these things very much contributed in ecological imbalances, and it had disturbed their socio-economic perspective. The economic generation was heavily affected because of these ecological imbalances, and this is the reason why we can see this is called ecological imbalances. Ecological imbalances. Then we have seen the earthquake, flood, fire, all these things had contributed in ecological imbalances. Flood, fire, all these things had completed in ecological imbalances. So these are the facts normally we have in examination related to the decline of Indus Valley civilization. Some characteristics that we have seen. Now come to the Vedic civilization. Vedic civilization. Vedic civilization, it is said that it was constituted by Aryans. Aryans. 1500 BC to 600 BC. This is a period called Vedic period. Vedic period. Because Veda was composed during this period, so this is the reason why it is called Vedic period. Veda was composed during this period, so this is the reason why it is called Vedic period. So 1500 to 600 BC, and then we have the 1000 BC. This is called Rig Vedic period, and this is called Later Vedic period. Regarding Rig Vedic period, why it is called Rig Vedic and why it is called Later Vedic, let us see. This period is basically constituted by the Aryans. Some important factual compilation, you must remember that Aryans came from Central Asia. Without going into detail of the modern theory, but the acceptable fact is that Aryans came from Central Asia. Second, they came to India, migrated to India, not as an invader but came as a migrants in search of pasture land. In search of pasture land. And third point is that they did not came at a time, but came in waves, and that reflects the composite culture. That reflects the composite culture. Came from Central Asia, migrants, they came in the waves, and that reflects the composite culture. Okay. So this is how we define the term Aryans. Earlier it was said that what is the meaning of the word Aryans? It was a race or a cultural community. Cultural community. But basically the meaning of the word Aryans, linguistic group. Linguistic groups. So Aryans should not be compared with any particular race or the linguistic community or the cultural, should not be compared with a race or the cultural community, but it was basically a linguistic group. Linguistic group. Those who speak Indo-European language, they were called Aryans. Those who speak Indo-European language, they were called Aryans. Aryans. They are basically speaker of Indo-European language. Like Sanskrit speaking, German speaking, Persian speaking, called Aryans. So Aryans are basically what? Linguistic community, and should not be compared as race or the superior race. They composed Vedic literature. Vedic literature are four: Veda, Brahman, Aranyak, Upanishad. Ved, Brahman, Aranyak, and Upanishad. Vedic literature. Ved, Brahman, Aranyak, and Upanishad. These are in series. First Veda was composed, then Brahman was composed, then Aranyak, then Upanishad. Vedas are four: Rig Veda, Sham Veda, Yajur Veda, and Atharveda. Atharveda. Vedas are four: Rig Veda, Sham Veda, Yajur Veda, and Atharveda. So, if you arrange the Vedic literature, 1500 BC to 600 BC, 600 BC, this is long span of time is called Vedic period, and 1000 BC. So this is a Rig Vedic period. This is a later Vedic period. Why it is called later Vedic period? Because the later Vedic literature was composed like we have Samved, we have Ajurved, we have Atharved, then Brahman, then Aranyak, and then Upanishad. Samved, Yajurved, Atharved, Brahman, Aranyak, Upanishad, all are compiled here, and in Rig Vedic period only Rig Veda was composed. So what actually marked the change here from this is called transition from Rig Vedic period to later Vedic period. This is use of iron technology. This is a new change. You can see the marked change from Rig Vedic period to later Vedic period. This is use of iron technology. Iron had transformed the Rig Vedic period into later Vedic period. Played a very key role. Although most of the use of the iron was that time only related to war weapons, but definitely the Jan was transformed into Janpad. Jan means people, where the king was ruling over the territory. King was ruling over people, and here king was ruling over territory. So Jan to Janpad, this transition you can see in the context of transition from Rig Vedic literature to later Vedic literature. Rig Vedic literature to later Vedic period. Jan to Janpad. And definitely iron had played a very significant role in transformation from Jan to Janpad. Vedic period. So Rig Veda, it's a voluminous book. We have 1028 hymns in Rig Veda. 1028 hymns. And all the words that derived from Om. So 1028 times we have the word Om is mentioned in Rig Veda. It's a voluminous book. There are 10 mandalas in Rig Veda. First, second, third, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So second to 7, this is oldest. This is called Gotra Mandal, because the priest, those who composed these mandalas, in the name of that priest we have the Gotra. Gotra you must be understanding. You must marry outside Gotra. So second to 7. Then first and 10th, it was latest. Latest. 10th mandal, we have Purush Sukta, in which Varna system was described. Varna system came into existence at the end of the Rig Veda, that is a Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. These 4 varnas that came into existence, it is in the Purush Sukta Varna system. So Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra came into existence and is called Purush Sukta. Then subsequently second to 7. This is oldest. In first mandala, we have the story of Harishchandra, the truthful king. So this is called Gotra Mandal, second to 7. And total we have 1028 hymns. In 7th mandal, we have Battle of 10 King. Battle of 10 kings. That is Dasragya. Dasragya. That is Battle of 10 Kings. It was Vishwamitra who collected the confederacy of 10 kings to invade our Bharat tribe, and Bharat tribe defeated all of them. Supremacy of the Bharat tribe established. This is Battle of 10 King, which is mentioned in Rigvedic Mandal 7. Rigvedic Mandal 7. Then moving up, that we have the Rigvedic period. Social, economical, political life of the Rigvedic period. Social, economical and political life of Rigvedic period. In social life, we can see this is a patriarchal society. Patriarchal society. And the condition of women was very respectable. They had proper contribution in the family economy, so therefore the respect was properly maintained. They had right to education, right to property. So condition of women was very respectable. We don't have social evils like child marriage, polygamy, sati. That was definitely not there. So it was evil-free society we can see in the Rigvedic period. Evil-free society. There was no idol worship or complex rituals. But the human worship anthropomorphic representation of nature. Anthropomorphic representation of nature. Representation of nature. Anthropomorphic representation of nature. That is, the human-like figure was proposed. Anthropomorphic representation of nature. So this is a design made social, economical and political life. In economic life, you can see, economic life, we have mixed economy. Mixed economy. Agriculture plus pastoralism. Pastoralism cow was the main medium of economy, called Gau. Main medium of economy, Gau. Total 176 times we have the word cow in Vedic period, in Rig Veda. And day to day life, many words derived from cow. Like war, we say Gavisti. Rich man was called Gomat, having so many cows. So, cow was so influential in the economic system that the many social terms was derived from the word go. So, it was a mixed economy. But dominance of pastoralism, and cow was the center of that economic system. Okay. Metallurgical process where there we have gold, we have silver, gold and silver. Gold was known as Nisk. Shatman was called silver. These are not used as currency coins, but they were piece of the gold, piece of the metal, but used very much in transaction. Used very much in transaction. So, in order to have the economic transaction, although cow was used as a medium of transaction, but piece of gold and piece of silver as a metal, not as a coin. It was not as a coin. Barter system was there. The gold can be exchanged with the wheat depending on necessity, depending on availability. So, gold and silver was used. Metallurgy was definitely there. In the political life of Rig Vedic period, there was a hierarchy called Kula. Kula was family. Family was the basic unit of society, and at the same time, it was basic unit of the political organization as well. Gram. This was a fighting unit. Fighting unit. Gram, we have the word Sangram. Sangram. Gram, and we have the word Sangram. Then Vis, Jan, and Rashtra. So, Kula, Gram, Vis, Jan, and Rashtra. This is how we design Rashtra. This is a hierarchy of the political organization. Jan means tribe. Jan means tribe. Jan means tribe. Like Bharat Jan means Bharat tribe. And head of the Jan was called Janpati. Leader of the war was called Janpati, and king was ruling over people. Those who involved in production, they were called Vis, and head of the Vis was called Bispati. Head of the fighting unit, that is called Gramini, and head of the family was called Kulpati. So, this is how Bis was arranged. Shabha, Shamiti, and Bidat. These three organizations, Sabha was assembly of elders. Sabha was assembly of elders responsible for law and order. Shamiti election of the king. And bidat, redistribution. Redistribution. So Sabha, Shamiti, and bidat, these three was Vedic assemblies. Samiti, women also take part in Samiti. Women also take part in election of the king. Women also do take part in election of the king. Bidat means redistribution. Redistribution of what? Whatever the spoils of the war was collected, that spoils of the war was again restructured. And then it was distributed among the people. It was distributed among the people. That is called redistribution, that bidat. In later Vedic period, 1000 BC to 600 BC, here Jan was transformed into Janpad. Jan was transformed into Janpad. Janpad. And therefore, there was a beginning of territorial monarchy. Beginning of territorial monarchy. So, the monarchy has to be, the king was started ruling over the territory. Two territories that had developed was Kuru and Panchal. Panchal, Kuru and Panchal. Kuru and Panchal. This is the earliest territory when the merger of the tribes had taken place, and then it had created the two territorial, that is called territorial monarchy, Kuru and Panchal. So obviously, when the monarchy had a territory, there was a tax collecting method. Bhag and Bali, these two are the type of tax that had developed during this period. Bhag was the king's share of the produce. Whatever the produce, 1/6 should be for the king. And Bali was voluntary offering. Voluntary offering means what? That king should get milk, fruits on regular basis. Voluntary offering. So Bhag and Bali. 1/6 of the produce, and Bali, it was a voluntary offering. 1000 BC to 600 BC, this is a later Vedic period. Later Vedic period. In this phase, iron had played a significant role. Significant role. So this is how the later Vedic period was planned. Iron had played a very significant role. In social life, the Varna system became very rigid. Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, it became very rigid. That is, inter-Varna mobility was virtually restricted. inter-Varna mobility was virtually restricted. If you born Brahmanas, you die Brahmanas. So Varna was ascribed. Varna was ascribed and it was not achieved. So inter-Varna mobility was virtually restricted. There was a beginning of elaborate rituals. And along with that, that's called Dan and Dakshina. Dan and Dakshina. So it became elaborate. Dan and Dakshina. So Brahmana was largely benefited, and Brahmanas were getting share in taxation also along with the Dana and Dakshina. So complexities of the rituals had developed, and at the same time we can see that the condition of women had declined sharply. We have polygamy, we have the child marriage, and then concept of dowry also evolved. There were 8 types of the marriage depending on the circumstances. So such type of things had developed in the later Vedic period. Economically, if you can see, economy complex, mixed with dominance of agriculture. In this phase, we started growing rice. Rice as a new variety had developed, we started growing rice. Rice was called brihi. Rice was called brihi. So this new crop had actually added dimension in the productivity level. There was increase in the production called this surplus activities had started. So rice had started developing in this phase. In the form of metallurgy, we have seen that the iron implements was used on large scale, particularly in the war weapons. So these are the characteristics of later Vedic period. Some of the gods and goddess. In Rig Veda, in the Vedic period, we have 33 gods, in which Indra look most important. Indra, Varun, Agni, Usha. These are the important goddess we can see. Indra, he is known as Purandhar, that is breaker of the forts. Varun, he is the preserver of the Ritu, means season. Winter, summer, spring, all comes because of the Varun. Right? Agni is called intermediate god. We define Agni in the form of Atithi or Pathikrit. Atithi or Pathikrit. Right? Atithi means guest and Pathikrit means those who pave the way for advancement. This Agni was put to clear the forest and thereby expansion of that Agni. And Usha is what? Goddess of dawn. 25 times we have a hymns of Usha. So these are the religious cult you can see in the later Vedic period, combining all Rig Vedic and later Vedic both. So there were 33 god and goddesses that are mentioned in the Rig Veda. It was anthropomorphic representation of nature. Anthropomorphic representation of nature.